They are the long, slender fingers of a woman, their bluish tinge giving them the appearance of waxworks. Kouji is unable to remember what Omi's hands looked like, even though he kissed her fingers countless times. When he finished crying after his conversation with Fuminori, Kouji promised himself that he wouldn't cry again, and, in fact, he doesn't. He regrets his decision, however. He indulged himself too early. He should have saved his soothing tears for this moment, for he is now absolutely certain that the world he knew has vanished forever. Now, at last, his doubts about Fuminori have been utterly obliterated. Kouji pulls Ogai's revolver out of his pocket and wraps his hands around its grip like he would a charm. Its definite presence, its promise of merciful, absolute destruction, is the only thing keeping his sanity intact. He will surely use it to kill Sakisaka Fuminori. Not for revenge, not for justice, but to reassure himself that this world is indeed governed by his reason. For that purpose alone, he must eliminate the anomaly. He breathes deep, exhales, then lifts his hand before his face and stares at his spread fingers. Alright, he's not shaking. He is prepared to face his new objective. Kouji sticks the revolver back into his pocket and pulls out his cell phone. It's time to finish this. Just as he promised earlier, Kouji calls Fuminori again. The call goes through immediately, as though Fuminori was waiting for it.
Hey, Kouji. Where are you?
What difference does it make?
As soon as Kouji responds, the shrill sound of a phone ringing fills the house. Startled, Kouji spins around and looks into the hallway. Fuminori's house phone is ringing and flashing to signal an incoming call.
I see. I figured you'd be at my house.
Kouji fell for it. Fuminori is the one calling the house phone. He probably used a different cell phone to call his own house while talking to Kouji, knowing that, if he could hear the phone ringing on the other end, he could pin down Kouji's location. Fuminori must have predicted that the first thing Kouji would do would be to break into his house and, upon finding it empty, immediately call him.
So, I guess you've already seen everything.
Yeah.
Kouji responds fearlessly, even as he feels horrified by the cunning and foresight that Fuminori has begun to show.
Looks like you've become quite the meat-eater since we last met. Just how many people have you killed?
Actually, I've only killed one so far.
Fuminori replies unapologetically, with perfect cheerfulness.
I've taken apart 3 or 4, though. I've gotten pretty good at, cutting the tendons and draining the blood and such.
Kouji no longer feels sadness or horror when faced with Fuminori's inhumanity. There is only the cold desire to kill the creature speaking such revolting words with his friend's voice.
You killed Omi, didn't you? You were lying when you said you hadn't seen her.
I wonder.
Fuminori mutters, seeming somehow embarrassed.
To be honest, the one I ate first might have been Omi. It was the same day she disappeared, after all. Well, the body wasn't in any shape that I could, identify anyway.
Kouji already abandoned hope, of course, but this is the first time that he has learned of his lover's brutal end.
Tsukuba too?
No!
Fuminori says with an exasperated chuckle.
Oh, she's right here. Like I promised. I'm no fool. I need her to trade with you, right? I won't waste her.
Let me hear her voice.
I don't think that's possible. She's in no shape to talk, after all.
Fuminori's dismissive words further sharpened Kouji's bloodlust.
You forget what I said? If you don't let her go unharmed!
Come on, be happy that she's still alive. Or would you rather have Yo as a corpse? Let's get this straight, Kouji. You bring your evidence along with all the files you've gathered. When I'm satisfied they're the real thing, I'll hand Yo over.
Fine.
Even to Kouji, it's obvious that this deal is a sham. In all likelihood, Fuminori is planning to kill his friend and bury his secrets forever. Moreover, Kouji doubts that Yo is even alive. Her meat could very well be somewhere inside the refrigerator in front of him. However, Kouji isn't particularly interested in Fuminori's true intentions. After all, he has no intention of making a trade either. His only goal is to get close enough to destroy Fuminori and whatever is pulling his strings.
Where?
You remember Professor Ogai's house? The one you followed me to? Let's meet there, tonight, at 7. Come alone.
Hey!
Fuminori hangs up without even waiting for Kouji's response. Perhaps Fuminori, too, has sensed his opponent's intent. If so, then he has realized that Kouji is not coming simply to be killed by him, but with the purpose of killing him as well.
So, we're two duelists trying to gauge each other's moves.
Kouji thinks to himself, smiling grimly as he pockets his phone. Right now, it's as though Kouji and Fuminori are holding out their hands for the other to shake, while hiding knives behind their backs. It's astounding how much their friendship has changed. The real question is whether or not to comply with the 7 p.m. rendezvous agreement. If this were a serious negotiation, it would be wise to avoid preempting Fuminori in any way that could provoke his anger. What Kouji and Fuminori are really doing, however, is trying to lure each other into a trap where he can be hunted and killed. Kouji doesn't know what Fuminori plans to do between now and 7 p.m., but he's not going to let his enemy keep the initiative. The fierce bloodlust that has taken root in his heart is more than enough to energize his exhausted body. Kouji leaves the death-filled house, his stride more determined than before.
Driving was such a dangerous proposition for me that I hadn't gotten behind the wheel of a car since my accident last summer. I can't see the roads as roads or the cars as cars after all. Until it became a necessity this morning, I'd completely given up on the idea of driving on public roads. Now that I've had 3 months to get used to my condition, however, I can tell what the things I see are, such as which are cars and which are pedestrians. Even though I can't see the red and green of the traffic lights, I can figure out what they mean, and I've learned how to tell when someone's turn signals or brake lights are flashing. I still can't read the street signs, of course. Nevertheless, I managed to make it safely to our destination with Saya and Yo in the back seat. After we decided to abandon our home, Saya was the one who came up with the idea for our new hideout. When she'd been living in Professor Ogai's house, she'd discovered an abandoned building on one of her late-night strolls. In these hilly suburban residential areas that are still under development, it's not unusual to find thick, nearly untouched forests just off the beaten path. Saya's old playground is located in one such secluded area, unaffected by the flow of everyday life. It used to be a privately operated sanatorium, hidden among the silent trees. After the owners went bankrupt, it remained unsold and was eventually forgotten. After I left Saya and Yo at the hideout, I returned to town to make some preparations. Now I'm finally back at our new refuge. I liked this ruin from the moment I first laid eyes on it. Mountains of construction materials and other large trash litter the modest front yard, forming a serviceable barricade. This place looks even less likely to receive unwanted attention than our house, since all humans appear as revolting monsters to me. Places they've been tend to stink, or seem covered in filthy slime. Empty ruins like these, utterly devoid of traces of human life, are the places I find the most restful. I'm back, I call out, letting them know that I'm not a stranger. Then I go down into the basement where they're hiding.
Welcome back. Were you okay with the car?
It was no problem at all. I figured out how to tell which roads are one way. As long as I keep my speed down, there's nothing to worry about. So, How are things here?
I took a look around, as I thought there's no sign that anyone's been here since then. This place is safe.
I see. I hope it stays that way. I'm a little worried that this abandoned building could become a hangout for biker gangs or homeless people.
It's probably because of all the trash piled out front. Most people won't get anywhere near that, don't you think?
It doesn't bother me at all. I rather like it, in fact. Well, I suppose that normal people wouldn't.
So, how was your shopping? Did you find something good?
I sure did. I promptly unwrapped the weapon I just bought from the camping goods store. A 1-meter-long wood chopping axe. I chose the biggest, sturdiest one I could find. Knives with blades longer than 15 centimeters are illegal, the sign said. But they were selling these right next to it. Pretty silly. I gripped the axe with both hands, feeling its dependable weight, and swing it like a baseball bat. With deadly force, the steel blade sweeps through the air, right where a person's neck would be. Yo, lying huddled on the floor, flinches in terror at the howl of the axe as it slices through the air.
How sharp is it? Wanna test it on Yo?
No, that'd be a little, I definitely wasn't expecting Saya to say anything so brutal.
You don't need to worry. Yo's new body can heal pretty easily from cuts and such.
Even so, I'm sure it'll hurt.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right.
Saya replies, as though it had completely slipped her mind.
But...
She continues, smiling bashfully at the oblivious Yo.
her voice when she's in pain is pretty adorable, you know?
Well, I just wouldn't feel right cutting a human with an axe.
Really? Then what about Kouji-san?
That's simple. It should be obvious. But I guess that Saya still doesn't understand. I don't see him as human, so I'll have no trouble chopping him up or crushing him to a pulp.
That really makes a difference?
Yeah. Humans have a conscience, after all. No matter how much you hate someone, you can't help but think twice about killing them. And that's how I'll win.
Really?
Sai seems awfully subdued. I guess she's concerned about what'll happen when I have it out with Kouji. He's bigger and stronger, so I might not have much of a chance beating him in a straight-up fight. But what's just slaying a monster to me is murder to him. This is big. He'll definitely hesitate at the last moment.
I'm a little worried, you know?
Saya says softly, staring at the floor with unusual gravity.
With that kind of psychological warfare, nothing is certain.
She raises her head and looks right at me.
Don't you think it'd be better if I hunt him?
I appreciate Saya's consideration. Even though it could be interpreted as her having no faith in me, she's still putting my safety above hers. Nevertheless, I can't accept her heartfelt suggestion. With your strength, you might be able to overpower a girl like Yo, but I think it'd be hard for you to take down a guy. The bitter memory of Saya being raped by Suzumi is still fresh in my mind. Saya falls silent for a moment, seeming to understand what I'm thinking, but then comes right back to stubbornly press her case.
My first surprise attack against that man went fine, though. Most humans go limp as soon as they see me. It was the same at the hospital. You were the only one who could talk to me.
Well, I guess you have a point. I can't imagine it personally, but I suppose it's possible that Saya's appearance is shocking enough to make someone lose their morale. Suzumi was able to gain advantage because he had the same condition as me, which let him see Saya as a cute girl. Fear, it doesn't necessarily make people weaker, however. Depending on the situation, it can even send someone into a berserk rage and make them harder to put down. In other words, Such a tactic would be the same uncertain psychological warfare that Saya's worried about. Alright, Saya. How about this? When I tell Saya the new plan that just popped into my head, her gloomy expression instantly becomes a bright smile.
That's perfect! You're so smart, Fuminori.
Not really. It's not really a great plan, but I guess the fact that it lessens the risk for me is enough to excite her. She's so easy to please. But that's cute too.
So, when's Kouji-san coming?
I got a call from him this morning. For now, I've sent him to an unrelated place. I'm thinking I should shake him up a little.
It'd be best to take care of him after it's dark, don't you think?
Yeah. When the time is right, I'll lure him here and finish him. No one will notice anything if we do it here.
We're finally going to get another human's meat. But it's just going to rot here. There's no refrigerator.
Why don't we use it to trap other animals? It could be bait. For stray cats or crows.
That's too dangerous. If they somehow get away with the meat, someone might find it and make a lot of trouble.
I see. That's true. Humans are extremely dangerous, and their filthy, stinking bodies make me sick just by being nearby. Ironically, however, nothing tastes better than their meat. I truly regret having to leave behind everything in our refrigerator.
Well, there's a lot of animals living in the forest around here. I don't think we'll have any trouble finding food.
We have 3 mouths to feed, you know. Are you sure?
Leave it to me. I may not look it, but I'm good at hunting. I'll be sure to get lots for us.
Okay, it looks like you're going to be the breadwinner of this family. Saya giggles happily at my praise. I find these childish qualities of hers adorable.
I wonder how long we'll be able to relax this time.
Because of the casual way she says it, I almost miss the emptiness to which your question leads. How long? I wonder. Saya's right. This won't last forever. No matter how safe this hideout may seem, we will have to abandon it eventually. Just like when I failed to silence Kouji, the slightest mistake could put our life together in jeopardy. Some dumb kids might decide this old ruin is a good place to test their courage, or this land may be targeted for new development. In order to be together with Saya, I have chosen to live differently than other people. We will probably never be able to find peace in this world, teeming with humans. Not unless we somehow escape from it. I think it'll be a long journey. I pull Saya into my arms and fold my arms around her slender shoulders, and then whisper, "But life is like a journey anyway. Nothing stays the same forever. The only question is whether you watch time pass you by, or are swept up in its flow."
I guess you're right.
Saya smiles softly, perhaps in resignation, perhaps in sadness. Either way, there's peace and contentment in her expression.
We'll be together, though, so I'm not lonely. You're not either, are you?
No. I have no regrets. As long as I can hold Saya in my arms, I will gladly pay any price.
And besides,
She adds brightly, as though trying to cheer me up.
I know that one day we'll be able to live without hiding from people. I can promise you that.
It sounds like a fairy tale, but for some reason, she seems almost absolutely certain.
That day might be tomorrow, or it might be far off in the future. It's my first time, so even I don't know when the sign will come. I'm a little scared.
I have no idea what Saya's prophetic words mean, but this isn't the first time she's said or done something mysterious. She's performed unbelievable miracles any number of times. So, there's hope for us too?
Yeah,
She nods cheerfully.
I'm sure that it'll be my last present to you, Fuminori. My first and final duty.
Kouji has nothing to do but wait in the stale, moldy air. He has spent almost half a day inside the dark, empty study, straining his ears for the slightest hint of movement below. Few people could endure such a vigil, but Kouji has accomplished it without the slightest complaint. It's not that it hasn't been hard, but that he hasn't minded the suffering. Rather than have nothing to do with his razor-sharp nerves, he prefers to sharpen them further through self-abuse. Without a doubt, his single-minded focus is the only thing allowing him to push the limits of his stamina. Kouji understands this. He finds it pleasing to inflict pain on himself. Now that the man he thought was his best friend has turned his world upside down, Kouji wants nothing more than to destroy all of this insanity, including his own betrayed self. The willpower that comes from self-hatred is stronger and longer lasting than any faith or resolve, no matter how noble. Thinking that Fuminori might be using the house as his hideout, Kouji snuck inside carefully, hoping to perhaps take Fuminori by surprise. It was only after he got inside that he realized that the house was just as abandoned as it had been before. Even so, Kouji was sure that Fuminori would arrive earlier than the promised 7 p.m. in order to set up an ambush. However, the sunlight streaming through the windows turned red, then faded to darkness with no sign of anyone coming to the house. Kouji found his patience growing weaker and weaker by the moment. And now, it's 7 p.m. Just as Kouji's frustration is about to peak, his phone begins to vibrate and flash. It's from Fuminori. He's calling rather than show up himself. Despite his anger at having been tricked, Kouji manages to keep his voice calm as he answers.
What's going on here, Fuminori?
Well, I was worried you might be wasting energy on something silly, like planning an ambush.
Fuminori says, chuckling scornfully.
It's kind of late, but I guess I should tell you the real rendezvous point before you lose your mind. Did I make it in time?
Cut the shit!
Come on, don't get pissed off. I'm just being careful, right?
Fuminori laughs with unrestrained malevolence, as though to emphasize that he's seen through Kouji's plans.
Assuming you're at Professor Ogai's house, there's a place nearby, within walking distance. Yo and I are there. Anyway, first go back to your car and use the GPS. I'll tell you the address.
You have any proof that this isn't a trick too?
If you're that paranoid, you don't have to come. Just turn tail and run.
Fuminori hangs up immediately after speaking his challenge. Kouji leaps out of his chair and kicks it across the room, unable to find any other outlet for his rage. However, he has no choice but to do what Fuminori says. He knows that his exhaustion is at its peak. If he stops now, he'll probably collapse like a marionette with his strings cut. Only through his relentless obsession is he able to push his body beyond its limits. If he allows himself even a moment's rest, he fears that he'll never again be able to find the courage or willpower to face this incident. If he truly wants to kill Fuminori, tonight is his only chance. Kouji knows, of course, that his enemy is probably planning to ambush him. Fuminori isn't going to be chivalrous and fight fair. Not that Kouji has any right to complain. Kouji leaves the Ogai house and heads for his accord, moving like he's half asleep. Only the base of these foothills has been developed into a residential area. The address Fuminori gave Kouji is outside of that area, at the tree-covered top of one of the hills. His car's GPS shows a road that leads nowhere, but according to Fuminori, there should be an old abandoned sanatorium there. It's definitely a place that no one could find, even by accident. Maybe this next stop really will be the last. Kouji drives up the steep incline, soon leaving the houses behind. Even though the hands of progress are right at its doorstep, the undeveloped forest is darker than he expected. This looks like a great place to live in secret, or to kill someone in secret. These forgotten places aren't only found far away from cities. Even when surrounded by people, places that draw no attention become blind spots in the world. A broken down gatepost suddenly appears in the Accord's headlights, like a ghost rising from the darkness. It looks like this is the final stop. Kouji rolls up to the gate and turns off the engine, giving himself to the silence of the forest. His cell phone starts ringing almost immediately. He doesn't need to check who it's from, of course.
I'm here.
Yeah, I heard you. Welcome to my new home.
Fuminori is nearby, close enough to hear the sound of the Accord's engine. A shiver of excitement shoots up Kouji's spine.
Come inside. Yo is waiting.
Fuminori hangs up without another word. After grabbing his new maglite from the glove compartment and checking that his revolver is still in his pocket, Kouji opens the door and gets out of the car. Mountains of trash litter the modest front yard, forming a serviceable barricade. Kouji sees piles of everything from small refrigerators and mopeds to huge chunks of concrete and plaster that were obviously abandoned by the construction workers. The fact that they could get away with leaving all the stuff behind shows just how remote this place is. The moon is brighter than usual, allowing Kouji to walk unaided through the front yard without tripping on anything. Staying alert, he heads for the building beyond the mountains of trash. Something must be buried underneath the piles of garbage, because the whole yard is filled with the sharp stink of chemicals. Even homeless people probably wouldn't come to this place, much less live here. If you need to get out of the wind and rain, there are plenty of places more suitable than this. How many times has he stood alone like this in some ominously silent place, far removed from his everyday life? It's as though sneaking into deathly quiet houses and finding traces of unimaginable happenings has become as normal as going to class. The houses that he explored before were empty and dilapidated, but the necessary trappings of life were still present. They were like freshly shed cicada shells. This place, however, is different. The building is a perfect ruin, its walls and pillars rising from the dark forest like an army of ghosts, with no sign at all that people once lived and worked there. The structure resembled a skeleton more than a cicada shell. Time and the elements have stripped it of its former shape, and now there is only death. Kouji has gone as far as he can. This must be the final stop. What will Fuminori's next move be? There's no question that he's planning to make Kouji disappear, but how? Just as he's about to turn on his maglite, Kouji reconsiders. If he wanders around with the light on, he'll be broadcasting his exact location. That'll give the advantage to Fuminori, who's most likely laying an ambush for him. He holds the maglite before him in his left hand with his finger poised on the switch. In his right hand, he raises the revolver, keeping both the gun and the maglite pointed in the same direction, so that he can be ready to aim at whatever shows up when he turns on the light. Kouji steps quietly into the dark ruin. It takes a while for his eyes to adjust, but even then, he has only the moonlight streaming through the empty windows to guide him. Everything appears gray and indistinct. However, Fuminori has to deal with the same conditions if he's hiding here. This is a battle of nerves, exhausting and dangerous, where the first to make a sound and give away his position loses. The rooms on both sides of the hallway are all open. Some are even missing their doors. Kouji sidles up to each entrance, checks to make sure no one's inside, then carefully proceeds on. The stink that has been insulting his nostrils since before entering the old building has changed. Now it smells more organic, like rotting meat. It's exactly the same smell that was filling Fuminori's house. At the sudden noise, Kouji freezes and stares down the hall. It was a wet sound, like someone dragging their feet through a swamp. And it came from the room at the end of the hall. Something is there. Something that can make noise. Moving silently and keeping his light and gun at the ready, Kouji creeps in the direction of the sound. Now it sounds strange, like someone squeezing mud through their fingers, and as he gets closer, Kouji begins to hear some kind of animal's labored breathing. Could it be Fuminori? No, that's impossible. He should be holding his breath somewhere, waiting for his chance to ambush Kouji, not carelessly making noise. As he proceeds, the strange sounds coming through the cracks in the concrete walls becomes clearer and clearer. Kouji finds himself standing at the entrance to a room. It's filled with a thick, viscous darkness, just like every other room he's passed. There is more than just darkness, however. Something is definitely there.
Let's Start Project.